And we're going to start off with the first test, which is on this Friday, which features our vested interest indeed. We have Ireland v Wales.
Absolutely.
Which is always a humdinger of a game. It's going to be taking place at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. And it's
7
p.m. kick-off on Friday evening. And it's going to be reffed by Mathieu Renal, a Frenchman. And it's set to be a pretty wet one. It's wet.
We're in Dublin. We have a window right there, and I can tell you it's wet out there
right now. Apparently, that's meant to pass for today, but then a bit later in the week there'll be a bit more wet. So it's just kind of November, you know.
It's pretty November out there.
It's pretty November out there, all things considered.
100%.
So it might be November again on Saturday or on Friday evening.
There's sometimes, over the years, we always went to the obviously not able to at the moment, but we always went to the Leinster and Ireland games, and somehow the Aviva Stadium and the RDS where Leinster play always managed to have an avoidance of the bad weather.
Yeah, you have a nice clear night sometimes.
2 hours of clear skies and no rain on the weekend, and they would be for the rugby match. So let's hope that trend continues. I'm going to hope that it's maybe a little wet, maybe a little breezy, but it's not actually lashing rain.
One thing that's probably we can say with a certainty is that regardless of the rain coming from the sky, it'll probably be slippy. All the grass around here is just holding moisture, and there's no chance to dry. So
you go out and you kick a rugby ball and you drop it once and it's soaked.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happens.
So it will be slippy. That much we know. But that's nothing these two teams won't be used to and will be game for.
It'll absolutely inform the tactics, though.
It will. There might be a bit of leather on that ball to be kicked off over the course of the 80 minutes.
I dare say you're right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this will be one for the. Do they say one for the purists? I don't know. One for the tennis fans.
Yeah, one for the football fans. Kick tennis coming up. Now we're going to do a slightly different preview from what our normal format is. We're just going to look, because it's the beginning of the tournament. We're going to look at all the teams individually and just what they're kind of hoping to get, not just from this fixture, but also from the tournament as a whole.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the home team here, which is Ireland. This is us. What are we hoping to get from the tournament? Well, yeah, I see you have up here, we're just looking to kind of rediscover a bit of mojo and a bit of confidence, I guess, in the game plan and in what we're doing. Because currently, even like going to France and talk, and they wanted to, last week or 2 weeks ago, they wanted to go over there and they didn't want to mention that they had to go for a bonus point. Do they even remember how to go for bonus points? We're a bit clunky as a team. They didn't play at
for my money, they're a team that's struggling with an identity crisis at the moment, and that was not helped by the presence of Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton at halfback. Murray's still on the bench and Sexton's still starting, so that's by no means changed. But there's this situation where there's a lot of fresh faces across the park. There's a lot of more dynamic players. I mean, the pack that they've selected for this game is extremely dynamic. You know, they've got Caelan Darragh at number 8. He's not physical, but he's more mobile and less bulky.
Yeah, footwork driven and handling.
Exactly. It's more about footwork and speed, his game. Likewise, you would say Josh van der Fleer. Even Peter O'Mahony is showing some good tweel at the moment. James Ryan in the second row is a nippy guy himself. Ronan Gallagher at hooker. These quick players, not particularly not physical as with the rest of them. Physical enough, but bulk isn't what their game is about. Slow passes around the fringes aren't going to get the best out of them. What's going to get the best out of them is moving them a little bit wider, getting them on the ball at speed. They can move at speed, they can operate at speed, and getting some front foot ball that way. And then you just juxtapose that with sort of a very stale halfback and midfield combination that isn't looking to move the ball particularly well.
No.
And there's just this almost schizophrenic element to the team where they're trying some things. They've brought in this new sort of shape, where they have more forward pods moved wider. They have guys in the wings. And against Italy, you can see it sort of work. Some pretty combinations.
Yeah.
Anything can work against Italy.
Yeah.
But you can see it. You can see the mindset behind it against Italy. But then against France, all of a sudden you're not winning collisions. All of a sudden there's a bit more pressure, and everything tightens up again, and all of that seemingly goes out the window, and you're right back to short carry off nine, kick in the air.
Yes, there's a prevailing problem that I've often said about Ireland is the notion that a ruck is safer than a pass is just wrong. And they were in 2018, they were the 30-40 plus phase team. They loved a ruck. They loved running support lines, not to receive offloads but to resource rucks. And it's like, a ruck isn't safe. It's not
especially
safety,
in this game where that Ireland team in 2018 would be penalised off the field if they were to play right now, given the
ceiling rule,
tightening of rules around the ruck area.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not the most clever way to utilise your weapons. And I think you're right in saying, like, the personnel that they have, and certainly the personnel they've selected, would suggest that they're going to try and move the ball
especially up front. Like I still am juxtaposing. I love seeing, we've got Gibson Park in making his debut
first start, as we have James Lowe in to make his first start on the wing as well.
Absolutely, so getting those wingers involved would be crucial. Although it's a curiosity seeing Andrew Conway out of there.
Oh yeah, no. As I was saying, like, remember in the last game in Paris when you were watching Jacob Stockdale inexplicably drop a load of balls, and you were just thinking, God, we really need to get Conway out of there. Like, that's obviously what's going on here. Like,
poor Conway is brilliant and has been starved of possession. He does not need to be out of there permanently. So to see him dropped from the 23 was definitely jarring. He's a great finisher. But seeing Lowe come in is definitely positive. Hugo Keenan's had good steps starting off, and we know Stockdale can be lethal at times.
The issue with Stockdale is he's an out and out left winger. And James Lowe's an out-and-out left winger, and the better left winger at the moment is James Lowe. Yeah, so the better combination is probably Conway, Lowe, and Keenan at fullback.
Yeah, that certainly would be my thought. But they're persisting with him at fullback, and I'd be curious to see just what they can get going on offense. It's really that through line of Sexton, Henshaw, and Chris Farrell in the centres, who are going to need to show more than they have in terms of moving the ball around. But obviously,
certainly, I think Gibson Park will help with that. He tends to throw flatter passes to the line. He will operate with more speed. I was excited to see Gibson Park in. I am still befuddled and confused by the lack of Marmion, who to my mind is actually the form scrummy in the country at the moment. Connacht moved the ball very impressively despite having no tight forwards to back it up a lot of the time. His absence is a bit jarring, but having Gibson Park in there will generate that bit more tempo. The question and the fear is that we're a bit too slow to keep up with him, which would be a very clunky, disappointing look if he's throwing passes too quickly.
You'd hate to see that from the forward pack that's been picked as well. Like, you'd expect better of them, in honesty. They should, like, you like to think that we can keep up with that and that we can move the ball a little quicker. The fear what I would have, and something that just has to be worked on, is that actually, like, if you assess it, and it's one of the things that if you're sitting back as a casual fan, when it's the experience we always get when Six Nations happening, talking to friends who aren't really into rugby, who are watching Six Nations games, and they're like, gee, I don't know, man, I'm just looking at this France team and they look really pretty and they can move the ball, and then we have it and we can't really do anything. And that's the fear, is like we're actually kind of probably the worst passing team in Europe on balance at the moment.
I would agree.
And that's just a skills thing that has to be worked on, and perhaps a personnel thing too, but like,
well, it might take suffering a few defeats or things to learn that lesson. But the fear, like, I have a fear about this test, to be honest, because I think Wales are due for a win, and whenever we go in as firm favourites against Wales, the Wales tend to do us. We have that kind of relationship with them.
We do.
And if we are trying to throw the ball around and work on our passing game and all that, this Wales team have airs of Scarlets about them. They're probably better at that game. Like, they could win in a shootout in Dublin.
Exactly, and like, listen, the weather, it's all weather permitting, but there's a couple of things I'd love to see from Ireland in this game. There's probably two things: getting the ball wider, using the full width of the pitch, and being disciplined about doing that.
If James Lowe spends the whole debut chasing box kicks, I'll be
well, that was my second thing, is that the kicks into the sky against a team with Liam Williams in it are a no-go, especially with the inexperienced wingers we have on the field. I mean, I don't know how many bombs we think we're going to win, and it's something that needs to be impressed in the head of Sexton as well. First of all, you've got Gibson Park, who's a passing scrum half on debut, does not need to be put under the pressure of launching balls into the sky with accuracy. It's not his game, shouldn't ask it of him. Likewise, Sexton, you're not playing with Rob Kearney anymore. Like, who are these bombs for? I don't know. Like, he can't stick a bomb in the air and ask, James Lowe to chase and win it. It's not Lowe's game. And it is Lee Halfpenny's game. It is Liam Williams' game. It is even Josh Adams' game. Those guys will eat that shit up.
They will.
All day long, and they'll run it back. And that is, like, so from an Ireland point of view, be smarter with your kicks. Get them low. Get the Welsh team coming up. Wales, are going to be responding to a difficult time defensively. They've lost their defence coach. They're going to be, chances are they're going to be bullishly trying to shut everything Ireland down, making statements on defence, which we know they're capable of. And we also know that the solution to that is attacking kicks, getting little attacking kicks in behind,
little low ones,
and then getting the wingers to come up and kicking the ball behind them.
Welsh wingers do have an instinct for just kind of joining the line. They do tend to creep. So like your classic Ronan O'Gara spiral, the 50-22 as you saw in Super Rugby AU, like that kind of approach, going for grass and going for touch, try and play that territory game, especially if it is wet. Like a box kick is not your only exit, lads. Like you can spin it wide. James Lowe is a useful exit if you can just put the seat like the 4 passes required to reach him. He has a very useful left boot that you can use to execute off exit, or you can run it out with him. He's very exciting.
Likewise, Stockdale has a fine left peg on him as well. So absolutely both of those are options. And as far as defence is concerned, Wales' primary threats, you're looking at Josh Adams and Liam Williams.
Even Watkin and Jay Davison in the centres are potentially dynamic if they can get some go forward. If they can run at a fractured line, they'll execute a lot.
Well, there's a couple of areas in defence that are going to be huge. Obviously, I think just stopping them at source is vital, and I think Ireland will be confident they can do that with the heft of Ryan and Henderson in the second row.
The one caveat I would attach is that Alan Wynne-Jones is a nuisance, and he is the wisest of the second rows on it. And the last time we saw him up against that combination of Ryan Henderson, he kind of schooled them a little at line out time.
Is that right? Because we beat them in the Six Nations.
We did beat them in the Six Nations. But I don't think Henderson was playing that.
Okay.
But the year prior, World Cup year, when we were just trying to establish that partnership. They kind of were taken to school a little by the savvy plays of Alan Wynne-Jones, and they're not the first, they won't be the last. The man is phenomenal, but you just got to be ready for that. Wales are an absolute nuisance at the breakdown. The onus is on Ireland to try
to resource that area, but from a defensive point of view, just stopping Wales at source and putting bigger under pressure is going to be massive, and using those guys' heft, I think they will fancy doing that. And then likewise the jackal threat of Peter O'Mahony and Caelan Daragh getting any loose guys and attacking the pill is going to be massive as well. What is interesting about Ireland against Wales is like we have 2 shooting centres, Henshaw and Farrell, who are great readers of the defence and
good tacklers too.
Good tacklers and dominant defenders. They don't play like Gary Ringrose is much more of a soak tackler and much less comfortable exposing himself out there, whereas those guys will rush out and expose themselves but try to shut down plays, which will leave themselves open to either a Finn Russell pass from bigger or little chips in behind, and that's why what I would love to see with Murray leaving the team is just deviate a little bit from that that 13-man line that we've had with the 9 defending on the wing, and move Gibson Park in behind as a sweeper, blocking the kicks and helping out Stockdale.
Because the other thing is that whatever about the 9 covering the chips, like that 13-man line was only viable when you had Rob Kearney at fullback, who can actually read where the kicks are going. You actually do need that pendulum. The tradition of the pendulum is there for a reason. Like it's the only real way to effectively cover the backfield, especially in the middle third. Unless you have a near clairvoyant fullback with so much experience that he can read what the 10's going to do and anticipate where the ball's going, so you can trust him to cover that much space.
You need 2 men back, and you need someone covering the chip to allow the 2 centres to pull forward, and that's what Ireland need. Absolutely, the big step up is going to be, because Wales, I don't think they're going to try and reinvent the wheel, especially if it's a wet night in Dublin. They're going to try and expose what they'll think is their best matchups on the pitch, which is the aerial bombs from bigger, and getting the likes of Liam Williams matched up against young Keenan
or Stockdale.
Stockdale who's on about a 50% drop rate when it comes to balls down his channel. So that's scary. The guy's out of form and out of confidence, and they've put trust in him at fullback again. I would love to see him step up and make plays and shut that down, but that's absolutely going to be an area that Wales targets. So something that Ireland should be aware of.
For sure. And then I suppose, is there anything else from an Irish point of view? I think we can move on to Wales as well, who are really suffering a World Cup hangover this season. It's like new coach syndrome in the worst possible way. Their records
it's been rubbish, but also kind of predictable. It's one of those things where it doesn't matter how much you predicted, it's still traumatizing to see it happen. Everybody knew Trump was going to be in the lead in the election in midweek, and everyone's still freaked out about it. It's just one of those things. Everyone knew Wales were going to struggle post Gatland, whoever they got in, and they started struggling, and everyone's panicking. That said, Pivac, the guy who's thrown under the bus is defence coach Byron Hayward, who, to be fair,
their defence was leaking tries. Yeah. So, and considering how robust their defence had been in the World Cup, it was what built their success. Is what got them to the semi-final. It's what very nearly got them to the final as well against the Springboks.
That's it, like, who has the final say on the team? Is it not Wayne Pivac?
It is Wayne Pivac.
And Wayne Pivac, like, he's fired his defensive coach. What he did in the Six Nations was throw a kid who had played a few matches for Saracens straight into the 13 shirt at test level. And, you know, he's a good attacker, but he's not that good a tackler. And he missed tackles that cost them tries against Ireland and England.
Yeah,
and now the defence coach is fired.
Hugh Jones sometimes out there. He was a little soft, and it was especially just it was kind of they're kind of trying to reinvent themselves as well. Pivac's Scarlets were a very ambitious, very attacking side, and you can see elements of that in how they play. Certainly in the way they went to play France a few weeks back as well. They went out there to try and take them on in Paris in a shootout. And they lost the shootout, but they scored some good tries themselves. Like they can be dangerous, which is what makes me think they could be dangerous for Ireland as well. If Ireland are going to try and move the ball at all, I think Wales might be a little better at that. But some of that defensive softness is still there. So the defence coach obviously not completely absolved from blame, but to be scapegoated with all the blame seems a bit dubious. As well,
if the metric is it's not working after 11 months, so you're fired. Why is Wayne Pivac still in the job?
Yeah,
that's the concern you'd have over that, throwing a guy under the bus like that. But as it is, he's done it. He's still in the job, and now his back is to the wall as far as this tournament is concerned. Like if you're talking about hefty defeats against Ireland and England, or even comfortable defeats against Ireland and England, and a win against Georgia notwithstanding, that is what it is. And then, you know, is it a make or break game against whoever it would be? On paper, you might say Fiji, but you know, it could be Scotland or France either.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's very tough. Certainly, it's backs to the wall. Like it's a long time since Wales have had a run of form this poor. Yeah. Even in some of their wooden spoon, like they used to be a Grand Slam wooden spoon year on year kind of thing. It was all pre-Gatland, and it's like it hasn't been that way for a while. So this is tough to look at if you're a Welsh fan for sure. Some of this year, it is a World Cup hangover, but you can only caveat it so much when you keep losing games, and I don't know. Maybe like it's certainly pressure on for them. That being said, there's some chains of optimism. I'm excited about Rowlands. I think he was brilliant for Wasps.
Yeah.
Thought he did come in. He had a few errors in the first game, in the game against Scotland, like all of them. But he's
only warming to the task.
Yeah.
He definitely, like, one of the areas that you would have cited was a lack of real heft in that tight five. And Thomas Francis coming in at tight head and Rowlands coming in the lock. That absolutely is
kind
huge.
Of remedies that straight away.
It pretty much does.
Yeah.
And like if they were a rugby team and you were looking to get signings in, those would be the two signings you'd make if they were a club team, I should say.
Yeah.
And that's like that they brought them in. Their Welsh players is great. It's great. So I think that's an area that could be fixed. You know, they've got Tipper coming back in. And on paper, the side is very tidy. You know, you got Falatau at 8, Tipperick at 7.
Liam Williams back in now.
Alan Jones there. Liam Williams on the wing. Jonathan Davis back, motoring from 13.
Indeed.
Owen Watkin, more solidity at 12. Dan Biggar with a bit of a shocker against Scotland, and a bit like his opposite number, Johnny Sexton, is becoming more and more hot and cold as he gets on. But when he's hot, he's very hot.
It's true. And a bit like in terms of both of those dynamics, like maybe their form has dipped a little. They're a little older. There's question marks as to whether they're the actual 10 who'll take them to the next World Cup, both in the case of Biggar and Sexton.
Yeah.
But in both cases, no one's taken the jersey off them yet. They're still the best 10s in their respective countries.
Gareth Anscombe is seemingly permanently injured, and Reece Patchell hasn't really quite got to the level yet.
And Callum Sheedy is untested, although he is on the bench for this week. So we will get to see Callum Sheedy, who looks excited. Like certainly Bristol know how to move the ball, so he will be no mug in their attacking thing. But it'll be exciting to see him come in. But in the meantime, Biggar is very much the guy that they've trusted for a while. And it's a tough ask going to Dublin as always, especially with their backs to the wall in terms of this form. Yeah. But certainly like the likes of Tipperick back in, big guys. They have some talisman in that team.
It's just about finding some form and finding some performances, and generally speaking over the years, nothing has quite lit a fire under their bellies perhaps at times, especially when they feel like it's unjustified, like than an Irish team. Like they've tended to know how to handle Irish teams, is a better way of putting it. And this team is a handleable team, as the France game showed. This Ireland team, like there's vulnerabilities there, and there's also as bad as Wales' confidence is, there's a brittle confidence in that Ireland team. Like they're trying something new, And the second it stops working, they go right back to the old ways, and they start kicking the ball in the air, and that's your model. Like, I think taking those aerial bombs and responding and winning those battles decisively is actually the key to how they win this game, and standing up front.
Well, first knock us back in a few of the contacts, force the loose kick, and then execute on kick return. Very, very, if you can even get a kick return back to within 5 yards of where it was kicked from, that's just such a deflating thing for any box kicking side when it's just run right back at them with interest.
100%.
So Wales will be looking to do that, create those turnovers from us.
But the first port of call is just shooting up out of the line, and shutting Ireland down, and making sure that they can't really generate that momentum. And I think another area that's going to be absolutely vital to doing that is isolating runners. Like, if Ireland are a little slow to find their shape and they have guys taking the contact by themselves, like, you could just picture Caelan Daragh breaking a tackle, getting through, getting grounded, and then an Irish support runner is not quite there, and Justin Tipperick is. And
or Alan Wynne-Jones, literally any of them to a man will make a mess of any breakdown.
And stealing those balls and getting on top of the Irish and making them compress and reform that old system.
And also just bringing the line speed out to win, because Ireland, much to our chagrin, still persist with only distributing off 9 and 10, and the centres are a bit bludgeoning, so if you can force them narrow.
The other thing is that they're trying to go wide, Ireland. They're consciously trying to move the ball wide, and as we pointed out, they're not great passers of football. So putting the likes of like Henshaw under pressure when he knows what he should do is throw a skip pass. There's absolute scope for success there from a Wales point of view. So I really do think they should be bullish about this game. I think they should be going into this fancying it, because Ireland are very much in a period of transition and have looked pretty unconvincing. Most of their players are struggling for form, just like the Wales players. And if they have the right plan and they execute it well, they have the ability to own the breakdowns, to own the high balls, to frustrate them for 80 minutes and to get on top of them and score some tries and win the game.
Potentially true, yeah.
Like that back three is so vulnerable. Stockdale and Keenan and Lowe, they're all young, they're all debutants. Like, Stockdale is brand new as a fullback, and is in total form. Lowe's brand new to Test rugby, and so too is Hugo Keenan.
20.
That's like, when you consider that it's Josh Adams and Lee Halfpenny and Liam Williams on the other end of the scale, like, that's got to be an area they attack
for sure. And if it's a rainy day, as we suspect it might be, that could all lead to Wales getting inroads in it. As far as predictions for the game, then, what are you going to say? Are you going to?
I predicted Ireland to win the last time, they didn't, and I felt stupid.
So you're going to vote with your head this time?
I don't know. I'd say pretty. I don't know. I don't want to get too down either, but I don't know. Yeah,
we do get down sometimes watching this Ireland team.
Yeah, there's optimism. Like, when we were talking about Ireland, there's optimism that they can move the ball quick, they can be dynamic. Gibson Park is going to be vital.
Yes.
Can they put it all together? Yes, they can. Are Wales a bit soft this year? Yes, they are. So yeah, okay, I'll say Ireland then.
I'm going to vote with Ireland. I always vote with my head when it comes to Ireland.
Your heart, you mean? Yeah.
My heart, even. Sorry, yes. I ignore my head. I tell it to shut up. Stop telling me we're going to lose. My heart says we're going to win.
How's that working out?
Oh, sometimes it's great. Others not so much. Certainly, we haven't.
You called us to beat the All Blacks.
I've called us to win the last 2 World Cups, because I keep saying we're going to win the World Cup. It's law of attraction stuff. You need to put it out there, and hopefully it'll happen.
The law of attraction has taken an absolute hammering then at your hand.
Indeed, yeah, it doesn't work.
No. Yeah, listen, hopefully Ireland will win, but absolutely the scope is there for Wales to win it. If Ireland win by 10 to 15 points, that's a very good day for them, regardless of how they look, even though I think their primary focus does need to be how they look.
Yes. Well, my worst fear for the game is that we do try and get into a shootout, try and move it wide, lose that shootout, and then in the games to come, revert to type and go backwards rather than
there's
forwards.
The other one as well, which has happened even in this Six Nations, where we win with the old bludgeoning technique, and then get a positive sense of confidence about it, but it's hard to know.
Well, I'd
say home advantage, Ireland edges. That's what I'll say. 5 points.
I'll say 10. Let's be bullish about it. We're gonna beat the soft Wales team.
We'll see. What a dangerous thing to say.
I know.
Like, way to learn your lessons about all those times Wales have beaten us.
I know. Yeah. But with that. Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.